Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and agree to House Resolution 246, opposing efforts to delegitimize the State of Israel and the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement targeting Israel, as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 246, resolution opposing efforts to delegitimize the State of Israel and the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement targeting Israel.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from New York, Mr. Engel, and the gentleman from New York, Mr. Zeldin, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Engel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on House Resolution 246.
Without objection, so ordered.
I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I submit in the congressional record an exchange of letters between me and the chairs of the Committees on Financial Services, Judiciary, and Science, Space, and Technology on House Resolution 246. Let me start by thanking the authors of this resolution, Mr. Schneider, Mr. Nadler, Mr. Zeldin, and Ms. Wagner. I'm grateful for their bipartisan leadership. Mr. Speaker, there are 339 co-sponsors of this resolution. And let me say that again, 339 co-sponsors for this measure opposing the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement that undermines the legitimacy of the State of Israel. Support for Israel in Congress is an issue that's been like catnip for our friends in the press who cover our work. And frankly, this issue has been politicized in a way that I find ugly and that's ultimately harmful to the U.S.-Israel relationship. It's time that leaders stop playing politics with our relations with the Jewish state. But when the fog clears and the bullies on their pulpits end their tirades, what you see with this measure is a real bipartisan reflection on how this body regards our country's relationship and support for Israel in opposition to BDS. Almost 80% of House members are co-sponsors, and we're here debating it under suspension of the rules. And what this resolution says is simple. It says that support for BDS and support for a two-state solution just are incompatible. Let me explain why, and I hope this explanation will also help to address some of the concerns about this measure. Opposing BDS isn't about opposing any individual's right to protest or boycott. The right of any person to express views like that is enshrined in our Constitution. That sort of free expression is a pillar of American democracy. And this resolution says so. Let me read from it, and I quote, "Whereas it is a hallmark of American democracy for citizens to petition the United States government in favor of or against United States foreign policy, whereas the United States Constitution protects the rights of United States citizens to articulate political views, including with respect to the policies of the United States or foreign governments," unquote. That's in this resolution, so it couldn't be any clearer, Mr. Speaker. Throughout history, protests and boycotts and movements like that have played key roles in driving important change. The resolution says that too, and I quote, "Whereas boycotts and similar tools aimed at promoting racial justice and social change have been used effectively in the United States, South Africa, and other parts of the world," unquote. But here's the thing about the global BDS movement. I don't believe it promotes racial justice or social change at all. It promotes a one-sided view of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that seeks to marginalize Israel, that would deny the Jewish people the right of national self-determination, a right proclaimed by none other than the United Nations. Many of us have been fighting for years to advance the future for the Israelis and Palestinians of two states, for two peoples living side by side in peace and security. Building that future will require hard work and concessions. BDS says that the onus is entirely on Israel. All concessions have to come from Israel. And the Palestinians should reject negotiations and just allow international pressure to build on Israel. Well, you know, that's not how negotiations work, and it's no way to promote peace. That's why this movement is so counterproductive, in my view. You want to criticize the government? That's your right. You want to stop buying products from a certain country? That's also your right. But participating in an international, commercial effort that undermines Israel's legitimacy and scuttles the chances of a two-state solution isn't the same as an individual exercising First Amendment rights. I continue to believe that a two-state solution, which guarantees self-determination for both Jews and Palestinians, not one or the other, is the best way to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I believe that the overwhelming majority of our colleagues in this body agree with me, and Congress has said so before in bipartisan resolutions. Today, we have the opportunity to reiterate that point and to warn against something that would derail that solution. I thank my colleagues, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from New York reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.